Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to all the speakers and participants to this last platform of the week, one of the last platform of the week for the SDG Summit. We had more than 5,000 participants during the whole week, and we are delighted to finish with a very important subject, STEM skills. And we have a number of very good speakers. We have a full agenda this afternoon. After this short introduction, we have the pleasure to welcome Sumati Subramanian from the European Commission. She will tell us about the view of the European Commission on this topic. And then we are also pleased to welcome Rituja Rao, who had moved from journalist studies to the tech industry in the UK. And then we will have a full panel discussion, which will be moderated by Andrea Bitnerova, project manager of STEM at CSR Europe. I will let Andrea introduce all the speakers this afternoon for this panel discussion. And then with a number of questions, Q&A discussion, we will finish around 5 o'clock this afternoon. So technical details, of course, we invite everybody to participate to the discussion. You are most welcome to leave your questions or to make any comment in the chat box on the right side of the screen. And of course, after this discussion, you will be able to either go to the lobby of the SDG Summit website and chat over there with your peers, or you can replay the discussion or the webinar of this afternoon with all the other 54 sessions which will be on the website. So to start with and to position the discussion of this afternoon, just a few numbers. I think everybody knows that from a studies point of view, there are actually not enough people graduating on the STEM field today. About 1 out of 5 graduates are graduating from STEM studies, and some of them are not actually entering the job market. On the other side also, there is an issue of gender equality. Well, during the studies, there is about 1 woman out of 3% graduating. And in the job market, we can see that this trend is even more in some of the areas, like, for example, in the ICT, where actually women are almost not existent. So universities and actually schools and universities have a challenge in front of them in order to be able to have more young talents in the STEM areas. They need to attract young talents. So we need all actually collectively to help people to join studies in the STEM areas. And also there is one of the elements also, which is to develop also the education through having more teachers and training the teachers in the STEM areas. From an employment point of view, employers report not only that there are not enough graduates in the STEM areas, but also that the graduates don't have always the right skills. And we don't always only talk about the technical skills, but we talk also about the soft skills, which is a very important area. And now, of course, we all know that with the climate change and the digitalization of work, there are a lot of changes in the industry. So this topic is even more relevant. So there are changes in the sectors, new ways of working, and different type of skills requirement. So this is really on the agenda now, and even more with the COVID-19 crisis, because everything going faster and stronger. So from CSR Europe point of view, this year we started up a platform, a collaborative platform with different companies, and you will have the opportunity to listen from these companies this afternoon: Amgen, IBM, and Johnson & Johnson. And this platform is encouraging and motivating young people to follow studies and careers in STEM through collaboration. However, beginning of this year, as I said, okay, we have the COVID-19 crisis, which came. So in fact, the different companies have basically agreed to work together on a new website platform in order to support learning online. So you can see on the right side of the slide here the address of the website. I invite you to have a look to it. And so this Amgen, Johnson & Johnson, and IBM have collectively placed their resources over there, not only technical, but also soft skills resources in order to help teachers and students to learn online. So we have different age groups and different languages, and this is a good collaboration to help, like I said, teachers and students during this COVID-19 crisis. So this is just a very quick introduction, and now I'd like to move on to the first speaker. We have the chance to welcome Sumati Subramanian from the European Commission, from DG Education and Culture. Sumati has got different responsibilities, including STEM higher education, and she is also a trained medical microbiologist, so she has a very strong professional STEM background. So Sumati, I give you the floor and to explain the view of the European Commission on this topic. I think you are muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this invitation and the opportunity to present recent European developments in education and training policies. Yes. I wonder, Andrea, do I have to change the slides or?
Just tell us next slide and that's it.
Yes. Okay, so the next slide, please. Yeah. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So my name is Sumati Subramanian and I'm a policy officer at the European Commission. I work mainly on higher education policies, linking them to research and innovation. Oh, the slides seem to have disappeared, Andrea. For me, at least. Do you see?
We still see them.
Okay. Maybe if I take my video off. Okay. I'll just present without. Yes. Okay. So last month, Commissioner Maria Gabriel presented the Commission's knowledge strategy. The objective is to achieve a European education area by 2025, revitalize a new European research area, and implement a digital education action plan. Now, these three communications, together with the European skills agenda, all place STEM skills, or STEM, as a topic of high policy and program relevance. STEM education was a priority in the Erasmus program in the period 2014 to 20, and it will continue to be so in the next programming period as well. Next slide. So why this focus on STEM? I hope you see the European Green Deal on your screens. This is the new growth strategy that aims to transform the EU into a fair, resource-efficient, and competitive economy. The EU's ambition is to become the first climate-neutral bloc in the world by 2050, where economic growth is decoupled from resource use. Of course, education, activating education, is key for this to materialize and for Europe to lead. In particular, skills in STEM combined with strategic, anticipatory, critical, and strategic thinking will be needed to drive as a driving force. Next slide. In consideration of the European Green Deal, industry trends, and prominent need for STEM skills on the job, the EU will continue its efforts to foster and encourage a greater uptake in STEM subjects. And this will be done across 6 dimensions to achieve a European education area. Next slide. The Digital Education Action Plan will also strengthen STEM education through its 2 long-term strategic priorities. Next slide. The skills agenda announced in July will introduce a totally new momentum focused on skilling for a job. It calls for collective action, it provides a clear strategy, it sets ambitious objectives, and there are 12 flagship actions, one of which is specifically on STEM skills. Next slide. You just heard about the challenges that we face. The challenges are persistent despite numerous STEM initiatives and actions in place at EU level, at national level, at regional level, even local levels. I will not go through these, but you know that there is a shortage, insufficient supply of graduates, dropout rates are high, female participation is low, especially in engineering and ICT fields. And mainly there is a mismatch of STEM skills, which is a result of subject silo learning and teaching and a disconnect of STEM fields of study from relevance to society. So taking this into consideration, the Commission has been promoting the STEAM approach to STEM education, which blends knowledge that is required for real world and natural curiosity. STEM stresses the need to bring together different education sectors, business, public, private sectors, promote multi-stakeholder backed strategies. This is the only way we can address the lack of coordination and alignment of policies, strategies, objectives, and actions, which we believe have led to the lack of impact, even despite the numerous actions, initiatives, and strategies. So this approach calls for the transformation of STEM curricula, including through more interdisciplinary and intersectoral cooperation. It promotes transversal skills. In fact, it asks to put these transversal skills at the core of the subjects. And as I already mentioned, STEM has many links with sustainable development goals. Curricula are more likely to interest students if they integrate economic, environmental, social, and scientific issues. There is also room for improvement in strengthening links with an interaction between formal, non-formal, and informal learning. Now, having said this, I would like to state that teachers are key in the STEAM approach, but I'll come back to this later in my presentation. And another important aspect that I'd like to raise is public trust in science. Europe is witnessing the spread of misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories, anti-scientific new movements such as climate change skeptics, anti-vaccines, and so on. Scientific literacy is an important tool to combat against this, and the Commission will act to increase levels of STEM literacy in the EU. Next slide. So a set of reinforcing measures to address STEM education challenges were announced in these recent communications. So if I start with the communication on achieving a European education area by 2025, you will see that the measures cover support to member states in identification of effective policy reforms, cooperation between stakeholder organizations on policy recommendations on innovative and multidisciplinary teaching and learning, fostering transversal skills, but with a focus on cooperation with knowledge ecosystems through more transdisciplinary, learner-centered, and challenge-based approaches. Next slide. And women remain underrepresented, we heard this, in STEM fields, research activities, and the creation of innovative startups, top management levels of higher education institutions, and of the largest publicly listed companies in the EU. Therefore, on inclusion and gender equality, governments and stakeholders will be brought together to foster gender equality in all its diversity across all sectors of education and training. Research exploring the role of gender in education and training will be strengthened. Dedicated modules under teacher academies will help find solutions to effectively foster gender-sensitive teaching in schools. A new transformation agenda for higher education will promote gender balance in academic careers, study choice, integrate gender equality dimension in curricula, and to pay special attention to women in decision-making positions at higher education institutions. Policy guidance on how to develop gender-sensitive education processes will also be developed, and the Commission's work on evidence, studies, and analysis will be stepped up to address this gender dimension. Next slide. There is also, as we saw, the need to connect citizens to science and vice versa, to strengthen the link between research and education, between scientists and pupils, and to engage on topics such as climate change. For this, we will use education for environmental sustainability to motivate students to study STEM. Schools and higher education institutions play an essential role in addressing the key issues of sustainable development by empowering students with skills, instilling key competences, raising awareness, changing personal behaviors and attitudes. So education for environmental sustainability development will be integrated and mainstreamed across all disciplines and all levels. To support this, the Commission plans to deliver a multidisciplinary competence framework on climate change and sustainable development, with a special emphasis on STEM. In addition, Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions. Through these actions, young researchers will be supported to engage with teachers and pupils on sustainable development issues. Furthermore, several member states have raised the need for digital experts. So advanced digital skills in fields such as artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, high-performance computing, robotics will be boosted. Next slide. Now I come back to teachers and teaching. EU-level cooperation will be strengthened and for the education profession to increase its attractiveness. Research-based teacher education will be encouraged. Erasmus teacher academies will be launched to support innovation in teaching practice. And as part of this, the Europe-wide shortage of STEM teachers and the little focus on professional development in STEM disciplines and fields will be addressed. Next slide. Now, on transformation of higher education, we need to transform our institutions to face the new reality with reinforced and reinvigorated education, research, innovation, and service to society missions. So in support of this, there will be the full rollout of the European Universities Initiative. As you know, the European universities are transnational alliances, where several of the 41 alliances selected to date, and these include more than 280 higher education institutions across Europe, these are engaged in the development of new, innovative, interdisciplinary, and intersectoral forward-looking STEM programs with embedded challenge-based approach. These alliances will serve as models for the wider higher education sector. New curricula for engineering and ICT based on the STEAM approach will be developed, and a good part of this will be to increase the motivation of female students to pursue STEM by challenging and dissolving gender stereotypes and by removing gender biases in education and training practices and learning materials. Graduate tracking is also an important element, and so the Commission plans to implement a Europe-wide graduate tracking by 2025. This will provide feedback from graduates after they finish their education on the knowledge, skills, and competences acquired by the students and link it to the world of work. Next slide, please. So moving on, I'll quickly go through the Digital Education Action Plan. Here too, under the two priorities, there are several actions that are STEM-oriented. Selfie for Teachers, for example, which is a self-assessment tool, will help to identify strengths and gaps in digital competences for teachers. And we'll also develop common guidelines on AI and data usage for educators. And these guidelines will be accompanied by training programs for teachers and students with a target of 45% female participation. Next slide. Under priority, there are priority 2, there are several STEM-oriented actions. Close cooperation with multi-stakeholder groups on common guidelines to foster digital literacy and tackle disinformation. Secondly, on taking into account the growing importance of AI, the European Digital Competence Framework will be updated to include AI and data-related skills. I think this may be of interest to you. A European Digital Skills Certificate will be developed to allow Europeans to indicate their level of digital competences. This will correspond to the Digital Competence Framework proficiency levels, and this may be recognized and accepted by governments, employers, and other stakeholders across Europe. Next. Continuing with the Digital Education Action Plan, basic digital skills and advanced digital skills will be boosted. The Digital Opportunity Traineeships is one such example. And coming back to women, we will scale up workshops on digital and entrepreneurial skills and organize short placement schemes for female students in digital and EU STEM-related areas in the different economic sectors. Next slide. The European Skills Agenda, as I mentioned, the 12 flagship actions, several are aligned with STEM. Amongst others, strengthening skills intelligence, including at regional and sectoral levels, using big data analysis of job vacancies and making the data widely available will help the need for data granularity in the STEM fields. Next slide. Action 6 will develop a core set of green skills by defining a taxonomy of skills for the green transition. This will support the development of core green skill set for the labor market to guide training across the economy with a view to creating a generation of climate, environment, and health-conscious professionals. And then we move on to Action 7, which will complement actions that I've already mentioned in the European education area and Digital Education Action Plan. On this, the STEM action will have a particular focus on women and entrepreneurship skills and acquisition of other transversal skills. Next slide. And as a last point, I would like to make a point on the strengthening the role of higher education and offers of alternative credentials. Micro-credentials capture a small unit of learning, and higher educations can offer micro-credentials in a formal way or as non-formal documents. Typically, micro-credentials are given by public or private organizations that deliver a short course. As part of the skills agenda, the Commission will develop standards, European standards, for the quality and transparency of micro-credentials so that they can be trusted, recognized, and used throughout the European labor market and the European education area. In this way, they can be coupled with national qualifications frameworks and the European qualification framework. Now, why micro-credentials? Why the emphasis? This holds potential to help people improve or gain new skills. This is particularly needed in this COVID-19 pandemic. This is necessary throughout the careers with the flexibility. Micro-credentials are also useful for regular students and graduates, in particular to develop transferable skills that students from all disciplines need for their future careers. And the last slide. What I've tried to do here is to give you a peek into the communications. I thank you for your attention and ask for your continued support in co-creating with the Commission many of the actions that I mentioned today. I also invite you to either contact myself or my colleagues in the other DGs for more specific, for information on specific actions that may be of interest to you. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a good discussion ahead.
Great, thank you, Sumati. Very good information, extensive information about what you are doing at the Commission, and basically very interesting to see that the European education area that you have introduced in September is actually tackling all the points which are listed now as main issues for the STEM, and basically all the different dimensions with the quality in education, which is not tackling only technical skills, but also transversal skills, which is, of course, very important and interesting. The focus on the gender equality and inclusion also, which is also one of the elements which is now on the list for STEM, and of course the approach to green digital transition and the development for digital skills and high performance computing, and the support you like to give for having more teachers and also training the teachers. I think these are all points which are really important now, and I personally like very much the STEAM approach, which is showing that we don't work in silo anymore, but basically it's interaction everywhere between STEM and non-STEM subjects, but also with the transversal skills and basically having all multi-stakeholders working together. So thank you very much.
Rituja will be a very good example to show, to illustrate the STEAM example. Yes, she's coming on next year.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Okay. So thank you very much for this presentation, and I'd like then to now move to Rituja Rao, our next speaker, and we are very pleased to welcome her. She will explain to us how she moved from journalism to being a star in the tech industry in the UK. Rituja is only 23 years old, but has been winner of the Future Star of Tech in the UK, IT Manager Award 2020, and she has a background in digital transformation and change management. So Rituja, the floor is yours, and we are listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, CSR Europe, for having me. And thank you, Sumati, for that wonderful talk. I believe that everything that I'm going to probably talk about today just goes on to illustrate all of the wonderful points that Sumati has made and how I have been able to apply those in my own career. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm Rituja. I am 23. I moved to the UK from India when I was 18, and I studied journalism. When I was studying journalism at the University of Westminster, it was always my passion. It still is my passion. But as I was going through journalism, I couldn't help but notice how much tech had changed my industry as well. As I was going through journalism, I was increasingly been asked to code websites, be better at social media management, be able to create a wonderful new programs and business ideas. And I couldn't help but think that probably journalism is not going to be the way that I'm going to make a very bright future for myself. I decided that technology is a field that I want to explore, and probably from technology be able to go back into media and make big strides and big innovations in media using technology. And so as I was graduating, I decided I was going to go ahead and explore technology. It wasn't easy at first. It was very difficult to get internships. I was rejected at multiple points, but I did get lucky. I tried to get into technology through a variety of roles, such as business development management, marketing, etc. And I got more and more experience in technology firms or technology-based businesses. After graduation, I had fully made my decision that I was going to work in technology, and most importantly, that I had a knack for technology. I was actually quite good at it. As I started finding a job for myself in technology, again, it was very difficult. A lot of the employers tend to say that they will give young graduates opportunities regardless of your skills. But in practice, I found that it was actually quite hard for me to break through that wall. And that's when I found a wonderful company called Sparta Global, based out of the UK. Sparta Global is a tech consultancy specializing in graduate careers. What they do is they take a graduate, almost regardless of what their degree is, for example, myself in journalism, and they give them training for about 8 to 14 weeks and retrain them into a technology career and place them as a tech consultant with a client. And I went through that course. I was studying for 8 weeks. I was training to be a project manager, and you will not believe it, and I didn't believe it, but I was really good at it. I graduated top of my class. I at one point I got 100% score in an SQL database programming exercise, and I was really surprised by myself. All it took was 8 weeks of me studying a subject and using all my skills that I had got from journalism, from my experiences in life, and just apply them into technology. So after being at Sparta Global, I was placed with a client where I've been working on digital transformation projects and as a project manager in change management. I've also dabbled a little bit in agile and been able to deliver a project worth £1 million related to cloud computing and introducing Microsoft Azure across my company. It's been 2 years since I've been working in technology, and within the 2 years, I'm very proud actually to say that my work has been recognized, my diversity has been recognized, and I've been awarded the Future Star of Tech IT Manager Award. I was nominated for a Digital Hero of the Year award, and just this Monday, actually, I got nominated for Tech Women 100 Awards, which recognizes 100 women rising stars in technology. I guess what I wanted to show you from my story is that I have not had a traditional career where you go to university, you get a degree, you graduate, and you do something for the rest of your life. It's been an experience where I realized that it's difficult. There are some prejudices around us. It's almost expected, I believe, that once you graduate from a degree, you kind of stick on that path. If you don't stick on that path, your graduate degree has been wasted. And I heard some people say this to me, and I do not agree with that at all. And to show you what I mean by that is, I'm very proud of the degree that I studied, which is journalism. Journalism is changing. So is the entire world because of technology. Journalism is changing. I was asked to create websites and algorithms and videos and on radio. It was all tech-based. And now that I work in technology, I can list a few skills that are hard skills or soft skills that I bring into my role as project manager and IT manager. For example, interviewing people, being able to write content, being able to understand a variety of stakeholders, and most importantly, always being curious and asking the question, why? It has really set me apart from, I would say, some of my other peers who probably have studied computer science or ICT subjects. I feel like I have an edge. I'm always thinking in a way that probably some other people aren't thinking. And that allows me to prepare harder and really understand technology from the perspective of a user. I feel like if there is a meeting, if there is something that needs to be done, I think I have to prepare twice as hard as probably somebody who has studied computer science. But that's not a problem because we can all keep learning. We can be students for life. And taking that one step forward, I also want to mention that something that has been very useful for my career has been mentors, especially female mentors. I'm not sure if I would have done what I have done if I didn't have access to female role models who are absolutely doing wonderful things in their careers in technology. Seeing women in leadership positions has really sort of made me feel like, one, I can do it, and being able to have access to them is they have given me a lot of insight into their careers. Taking that one step forward, I would also like to comment on probably how today's generation feels and how the media views today's generation. I think there's a feeling that today's generation has it easy. Probably they're born in a digital world, and probably they change a lot of jobs. They leave a job every year. They keep jumping around, work from anywhere in the world. I feel like as a young person, and I probably speak for a lot of young people, that it has not been like that. It has actually meant that there has been a lot of competition. There has been a lot of pressure to be successful. There's also been a lot of pressure to do well in our degrees and take that forward. The feeling of being able to switch careers is actually not that easy. So I guess I am a massive advocate of diversity and inclusion and women in tech, but something that I'm starting to highlight a lot more is skills diversity. I feel like educating younger girls is wonderful, is absolutely needed. And the effect of that will be seen one generation later when all these wonderful girls will be in technology in STEM careers. However, we do not have the time to wait for an entire generation. There is something we can do today to encourage young girls right now. And it is all about being able to reskill them or retrain them, of course, if they want to be retrained, and give them the opportunity to actually work in technology, explore that career option, and see if they have a knack for it. I guarantee you that today's generation, because they are born in a digital world, because they were always born on computers, it's a lot more likely that they will probably pick up those skills. A supplementing point, an argument to that is, in an increasing world where technology is everywhere, it's in your fridge, it's in your car, it's on your phone, do we just want people who probably just studied computer technology? Do we want scientists to be completely guiding the journey of that technology? Not really. We want users. We want a woman who uses the fridge quite often while she cooks, probably. We want a man who probably is also, cooking, but we need his perspective on that fridge. We need a woman's perspective on her driving a car and a man's perspective on him driving a car. And that's why we need to bring these users into technology and have them contribute to what this technology is becoming. In a world where we're constantly worried about will technology take over humans, the only way to stop that and the only way to make technology accessible and effective is to bring these humans into it. So the last point that I would like to leave you with is the idea that people, a labor market that already exists can also be retrained, can be upskilled to bring them into technology. So the one thing that we probably need the least of is gatekeeping in technology, saying that you can only work in technology if you have this degree, if you come from this university. To make it a lot more accessible, I think people are just waiting for that opportunity. A lot of us, and probably I speak for some girls who probably didn't study computer science, didn't study ICT in schools and universities, we just probably don't know that that's something we could do. That's something we want to do. So giving them opportunities, having female role models also adds to that. Thank you so much for your time. I invite all the speakers at the panel to probably, discuss a little bit about the topic of skills diversity and changing the narrative on diversity inclusion to also become about skills diversity, because suddenly you will touch all parts of the society who've probably been, for their circumstances, their backgrounds, not been able to access a certain level of education. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Rituja. Thank you very much for explaining your past and basically for your passion on the tech and explaining exactly how you could move from journalism to the tech industry. I think that's very interesting indeed. And first, I would like to take out the fact that in journalism you identify the fact that technology is necessary in there, and that shows actually that many sectors are moving more and more to the technology, and that STEM is not anymore needed only for the traditional sectors of the past, but also in many new sectors, and that is a need for many different jobs nowadays. And then, of course, it's very interesting to see that you could move to the tech industry, and definitely also I think something which was interesting for me is that you applied what you learned in journalism when you went into the technology, and I think that's exactly the point about not having only the technical skills, but also bringing additional soft skills with you, and the mix of both are basically doing of you a very good person tech. But additionally, also you mentioned that it is necessary to have the right trainings, the courses, and some mentors, so some people helping you to go to this area. And I think these are really some good points also, and that's what we are actually talking about today, is that how to actually bring young talents to STEM and to the technology, with attracting them, but also supporting them and bringing them the right courses and the right support. So thank you very much for this very good presentation. I'd like to move on now and hand over to Andrea Bitnerova, who is a project manager at CSI Europe and handling several projects, including STEM at Home and Together for STEM that I presented at the beginning of the presentation. Andrea is going to moderate the panel discussion. And Andrea, I'll let you present your speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And Okay, now it's perfect. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. And it is my pleasure to be moderating the panel discussion in this roundtable on STEM. We have a very interesting range of inspiring speakers today, covering both companies and academia. Namely, it is Leisha Daly, Senior Director for Government Affairs and Policy for J&J Supply Chain in EMEA and for J&J Encompass Ireland. Dominic Nolan, Education Program Manager Europe and MEA IBM. Ashley Young, Science Education Program Manager Amgen Foundation. Alice Parks, PhD student at University of Limerick and J&J STEM 2D University Pillar alumna. And last but not least, Declan Cathcart, teacher in Amgen Biotech Experience and Temple Carrick School. In our panel discussion today, we will be covering several topics, or we will at least attempt to cover them. And it will be topics such as current challenges in STEM, what companies are currently doing on STEM, but also in collaboration with other stakeholders, what kind of skills will our current and future generations need, and also what is the project that CSR Europe is currently doing with companies on STEM. So in the first part of our panel discussion, each of our speakers will receive 5 minutes to answer 3 simple questions. We will start with the company's representatives, so Leisha, Dominic, Ashley, in this order. And my questions for you to cover in 5 minutes are, what is your company doing on STEM? Who do you collaborate with on these initiatives? And where you see the current challenges in STEM? So, Leisha, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and thank you very much to CSR Europe for this invitation. I'm really delighted to be here and to be able to take part in this really important discussion. Johnson & Johnson has been around a long time, in fact, since 1886, but we've had a very strong connection with women right throughout those years. In fact, of the first 14 employees that we had in J&J, 50% were women. So to your first question, Andrea, what are we doing now on STEM? We're still very committed to building a diverse scientific community, and really to accelerate this, we developed what we call our YSTEM 2D initiative. So this stands for Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, Maths, Manufacturing and Design. And our strategy on promoting more female representation in STEM 2D careers is based on 3 distinct groups. So we have 3 distinct pillars to our strategy: the youth pillar, the university pillar, and the professional pillar. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background to each of those. And I suppose with all 3, our aim is to harness the power of diversity for both our company, but importantly as well, also for our customers. So the youth pillar aims to spark enchantment in our young colleagues and to really inspire the next female generation to imagine what is possible for them in STEM 2D. And we do this by helping girls under 18 years of age to use technology to have fun, but also to find creative ways of problem solving. Johnson & Johnson employees in Ireland visit schools and conduct interactive workshops with students. So we have over 5,000 employees here in Ireland across 10 sites. And we help students to explore the world of science and technology and give them a sense of what opportunities might be there for them in the future. So really to encourage them and excite young girls about science. And as I said at the beginning, to spark enchantment in them in the area of science and technology. So our second pillar then of the program is focused on undergraduate females in STEM 2D courses. And we have here in Ireland almost 60% of 30 to 34-year-old women actually have a 3rd level degree in science, but actually they're disproportionately missing from the workforce and also missing in higher education. And this program, our university program, aims to address this shortage in STEM 2D careers and increase the number of undergraduate women enrolling in these fields. And it's a very high intensity program which we're running with 2 individual universities here in Ireland. The key elements of the program include formal research, which helps us to understand what the barriers are to attracting and retaining women in STEM disciplines. And we also give grants to students to help them through their university program. And we heard Ritusha talking earlier about mentorship, and I think this is really important, and it's a key part of our program in university as well. We offer mentorship, career workshops, and we also try to, and we did prior to the current pandemic that we're all going through, we brought the students to our sites so that they can see and feel for themselves what opportunities might be there and what jobs in science could look like. And I'm absolutely delighted that later in your session, Andrea, we have one of our students, Alice Parks. She is a fantastic participant in the program, but it'll be a real opportunity for everybody to hear firsthand what that experience is like. So one of the other questions you asked actually was, who do we collaborate with? And we do collaborate, as I said, with the universities, but also with the youth program. We also collaborate with groups like Bridge to Employment, Junior Achievement. And in fact, we've been working with Bridge to Employment for over 25 years. And their aim is to encourage students from disadvantaged backgrounds to continue in third level with an emphasis on science. So outside of the universities and obviously the schools that we do the junior program with, we also collaborate with other groups like Bridge to Employment. And the third pillar of our program is the professional one. And this is aimed at former colleagues who have left the workplace for whatever reason, perhaps to raise a family, to look after an elderly relative. And this program, which is called our Reignite program, is a return to work program for female professionals who've taken a career break. Because we kind of feel that, you know, getting them in from universities is one part of it, but we're losing them right throughout their journey as well within the workplace. And our aim is to reintegrate these female colleagues back into the workforce. And even, I suppose our aim is to get them back in for a 6-month period, but then also to actually see if we can get full-time work for them later on. So the final brief question that you asked me was around the current challenges that we're seeing. And I suppose I know we can come back and talk about this again, but it's actually a challenge to keep all of these programs going within the current pandemic that we're experiencing. So will I stop here and then we can come back to those questions again, Andrea, if you want to later on in the discussion.
Thank you very much, Lisha. And our next speaker is Dominic.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Dominic Nolan. I work in IBM CSR function. And in terms of response to your first question, so what is IBM doing? So the CSR function's commitment to supporting STEM education goes back many years. And has included investments in online STEM learning content for students and teachers, but importantly, alongside the mobilization of employees to provide young people in their communities with kind of hands-on experience of 21st century technologies. So that's a bit of legacy. But right now, IBM has got our IBM CSR function has got 2 flagship programs that address STEM education. The first is called PTech, so that's capital P-TECH. And the other one is Open PTech. And PTech is an innovative high school model that prepares students for STEM careers through work-related learning. And that can be mentoring, worksite visits, which are virtual at the moment, obviously, because of the pandemic, and also internships as well as access to post-secondary technical qualifications in areas such as cybersecurity and software development. But it's not just about addressing the skills gap, because PTech also aims to diversify the STEM workforce by focusing on schools that serve disadvantaged communities. So that's our kind of bricks and mortar STEM initiative. And then we have Open PTech, which is a free online platform, which is part of STEM at Home, that provides students from the age of 14 upwards and teachers anywhere with access to free courses and industry standard digital badges or micro credentials, which we heard about earlier, in technical and professional but also employability skill areas as well. So that includes areas such as AI, cybersecurity, cloud computing, presenting, and also design thinking, which is very important. And Open PTech is available in English, Spanish, French, and Polish already. Other European languages are currently being translated. And it's got the potential to bring a digital workplace learning model within the reach of any student, teacher, or school in Europe. In terms of collaboration, collaboration is at the heart of PTech, which is, as I said, is our kind of bricks and mortar program, because it's a partnership between school, employers, and higher education. And there are currently over 600 employers involved in PTech globally. In Europe, PTech's deployed in 7 countries with partnerships with 30 employers, plus national and regional education ministries. In terms of Open PTech as a collaboration exercise, it provides access to content from IBM, but also from partners and the best open education resources available online today. IBM has also worked with education partners to create bespoke Open PTech content for students and teachers, specifically in AI, and also preparing for sort of your first job. And in both of those courses, the students that take them can actually get digital badges for that. In terms of challenges, I mean, obviously, despite, you know, tens of years of initiatives around sort of women in STEM, they're still underrepresented in the workforce. So that problem isn't going away. But IBM has supported and delivered sort of STEM activities in summer camps for girls for a number of years. Couple of good examples, recent examples. In Italy, my colleague there has got a great project where she's partnered with universities across Italy to provide AI and design thinking workshops for female high school students. And what that's doing is increasing the number of young women that are choosing to study computer science degrees, which is very positive. And then this summer, we in the Czech Republic, our colleagues there used Open PTech in collaboration with an education NGO to put on summer camps for female students, which has been very positive as well. Just the other thing I think in terms of the challenges would be, I think we also need to think about ensuring that young people from a broad range of backgrounds get access to STEM enrichment. In my experience, you know, as a teacher, as working on STEM programs, etc., I find that often it's the gifted and talented students that get the opportunities. And I think STEM is really important for all children, STEM knowledge, STEM literacy. So I think I would call for greater inclusion in terms of ability and also socioeconomic status. And that's where PTech comes in, really, I feel, because we're very much focusing on working with schools that serve disadvantaged communities. So I think those are my 3 questions answered. Thank you very much for listening. Hand back to you, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Dominic. And our last company representative for the first intervention is Ashley Young, connecting all the way from California. So it's very early in the morning for her. So we really appreciate her connecting, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrea, and delighted to be a part of this discussion. So thank you all for having me join you today. I'm coming from Amgen as the Amgen Foundation Science Education Program Manager. Amgen was started 40 years ago. As of this year, it's one of the earliest biotech companies out there. You may not know that the Amgen name comes from Applied Molecular Genetics, so Amgen. Today, Amgen is a global company. We have about 23,000 staff worldwide. And the Amgen Foundation is the principal channel for the company's philanthropy. And it began about 30 years ago. So the Amgen Foundation places a strong emphasis on strengthening science education and is committed to investing in meaningful evidence-based initiatives that make a difference locally, nationally, and internationally. And so to that end, the Amgen Foundation has contributed more than $175 million to date to advancing science education programming around the world. We collaborate with a number of local, regional, international nonprofits as well as university partners and other stakeholders in STEM, such as industry partners as well. The Amgen Foundation supports 4 major initiatives in our portfolio. Those 4 include the Amgen Scholars Program, which is a research program for undergraduate students interested in the PhD track into STEM. The Amgen Biotech Experience is the second one. This program trains teachers in a core curriculum of biotechnology labs, then supplies them with the equipment and reagents to carry out these labs in their classrooms year after year. And then the last 2 are the virtual programs that we support. We are the science education partner of Khan Academy. So our relationship has funded their science content, especially their biology content, really building that out in a number of different languages. And then Lab Exchange is the newest addition to our portfolio. It's been in development for about 4 years, launched in January of this year, but is a virtual platform for engaging in science with simulations, content from a variety of different top tier creators of science educational content. The Amgen Foundation, we see science literacy as fundamental to success in life. As many of you have mentioned today, science is rapidly changing with the power of technology, and it's not just science. The world is becoming more interdisciplinary. There are problems that are going to be very difficult to solve. The growing and aging population, climate change. We really need everyone to be scientifically literate to support and solve these severe problems that we're facing. So in order to do that, we have to reimagine how we introduce, experience, and access science education. So the Amgen Foundation portfolio really supports programs that get students to do science in a realistic way as much as can be done. So I don't know about you, but if you think back to your science class, hopefully it's not purely lectures and note-taking and books, but that's not what we want today. We need people who are tech savvy, who can communicate their science. So this range of fields all coming into one, and being able to get your hands on real equipment and supplies really helps people see themselves in science. The last challenge I guess I would mention, as Alicia and Dominic touched on, statistics show that there is a drop-off of women in science as they move through the path, and also minority communities such as Black and Brown students, and as Dominic just mentioned as well, people of a lower socioeconomic status. So that drop-off really hurts us all. The brain power of everyone is needed here, and partnerships like this, discussions like this one today, are essential to meeting these challenges together. So I'll pass it back to you, Andrea, for next steps.
Thank you very much, Ashley. So as we heard from all our company representatives, we can definitely identify some areas that are common to all of them, such as, lack of women and lack of diversity and inclusion in general in the STEM fields, which is why this roundtable today is very important and positive, because if you noticed, most of our speakers are female. So we are also trying to send a very strong message with the participants of our panel and our presentations. And we also heard that what's very necessary is not to act as a company alone, but to really engage the whole ecosystem and the educational institutions and nonprofit organizations to make a change. So we're very happy to hear about all the great programs that you are doing, but we still need to hear from our 2 remaining speakers on their initial intervention. So now I invite Alice and Declan. They will also each have 5 minutes. Their questions will be somewhat similar, but also slightly different. Their intervention will cover whether they think the current challenges that were mentioned by Alicia, Dominic, and Ashley, whether they agree with them or they think there are actually some other challenges as well. What they think the industry is already doing, but what it might be doing even better, to help us tackle those challenges. And last but not least, what can young students or ambassadors such as Alice and teachers as Declan, what role can they play in all of this? So I see Alice already ready, to speak. She cannot wait to make her intervention. So please, Alice, you can take over from here.
Thanks a million, Andrea. I'm delighted to be part of the panel. First of all, it's a fantastic panel talking about a very interesting topic today. And thank you, Andrea, for the lovely introduction, and also Lisha. So to start straight into your question, first of all, about the challenges that I think are in STEM, and 100% I agree with what has been said, and especially in the fact that there is a lack of female representation in STEM 2D currently, and it's an issue and a gap that needs to be both addressed by both males and females, as it's seen as an issue across the board for companies, not just an issue for one gender to deal with. And I also think that early intervention is very important in STEM 2D, and why I say that is because by making young primary and secondary school students aware of what STEM 2D means and what it is to work in STEM 2D makes them less likely to become so familiarized with stereotyping of the past in STEM 2D. So what I think companies are already doing, especially from Johnson & Johnson perspective, with the Women in STEM 2D program that Lisha has already spoken about. So just to give you a bit more background, because I completed the program myself in my second year of my course in university, and as part of the program, us undergraduate students get to connect with like-minded female students in the STEM 2D courses in our university, the University of Limerick. And it was very beneficial, especially for the females that were the only female in their course, that they had some other like-minded, ambitious females that they could network and connect with. And as part of the program, then we got involved in projects, and the projects consisted of us being put into teams of 4. So my team consisted of myself in pharmaceutical chemistry. There was an industrial biochemist, biomedical engineer, and mechanical engineer. So it reflected working on a multidisciplinary team in industry, as we each brought something different to the project. So our project was about identifying the barriers facing women in STEM 2D and how we can overcome those barriers going forward and encourage more young females into STEM. So that in itself, our findings by doing research in these areas really motivated us in our own courses and future career plans. Definitely motivated us in where we wanted to go in STEM, having identified where the gaps were in female representation. And as Rituja and Lisha have already spoken about, one of our favourite aspects of the programme was definitely the mentoring side, that each of us were assigned a mentor that had a similar background to ourselves. So I was assigned a fantastic mentor, Jane Ann Fitzgerald, who had also done a similar course to myself. When I was when she was in university. So she gave me invaluable advice on her career path that she took after doing her course, and also gave me advice on what the pharmaceutical industry is like, on interviewing tips and how to construct a CV, and different things that made us all feel like we were at an advantage to other people that were in our course in university. So that was definitely a huge aspect of the course that we all took so much from, the mentoring side of things. So in thinking of the way forward and in keeping with the theme of sustainability and what STEM ambassadors from university can do going forward, I think what's unique about these programs is that they produce a group of enthusiastic young student university ambassadors that have an urge of wanting to give back, having had such a great experience on the programme, through connecting and networking with like-minded, ambitious female students, but also through such a positive mentoring experience. So there was a group of us after the programme that really wanted to get involved and encourage young students like our past selves into STEM courses. So we got involved with different talks and events hosted by the National Centre for STEM Education in the University of Limerick. And it was there that we realised the impact that we university STEM ambassadors can have on young primary and secondary school students in influencing their decisions in STEM. And it reminded me of being back in school when I was the only girl in my applied maths class, and my female applied maths teacher at the time, she wanted to encourage other young girls into her class because she couldn't get over the fact that I was the only girl in the applied maths class. So she told younger girls in the school about her subject and told them that I was also doing the subject. And a lot of them then came to me because they wanted to get my opinion because they could relate to me, only being a number of years older than them. So I think by connecting young student STEM ambassadors with students in primary and secondary school can really both create the opportunity for young STEM ambassadors to actively get involved in bridging this gender gap in STEM, but also to give back into this sustainable cycle of encouraging more and more students each year into the STEM 2D talent pool that will eventually become the future STEM ambassadors for universities.
Thank you very much, Alice. And now the last speaker that we have for this panel discussion and also for this first part of the panel is Declan Cathcart. Declan?
Thank you, Andrea. And thank you to CSR for hosting us. It's a real privilege to be part of the Roundtable panel here, looking at issues that I think are increasingly important and urgent. So yeah, I'm Declan Cathcart. I'm a full-time secondary school science and maths teacher, but my background is in biotechnology, and I came to school teaching relatively late. So I worked for many years in university and industrial biotech research labs and institutes in the UK and around Europe and in Ireland. And that was at doctoral and postdoctoral level, but increasingly I found my passion was in teaching. So I now teach 13 to 18-year-olds full-time, but I also have a role in developing professional development opportunities for in-service teachers. And I also lecture to trainee teachers, pre-service teachers in STEM pedagogy at University College Dublin. So I'd just like to echo and focus on some of what Sumati said to start off with. Sumati, thank you for your eloquent and very interesting presentation. Yeah, absolutely. EU citizens need to be scientifically literate so that they can navigate and critically evaluate, I guess, the many issues that are associated with science and technology. The pace of change in science and tech is such that it's we're facing an unprecedented challenge as students and as their teachers at all levels, primary, secondary, third level. We need to attract young people into STEM, not only to become the professional scientists and technologists, engineers, mathematicians that our workforce needs, but also even those with higher level STEM education as they enter, entering careers in communication, in public relations, in ethics, in politics, and of course as STEM educators. And it was fascinating to listen to Rituja, and thank you for your inspiring talk, Rituja. Lateral movement between different types of careers is thankfully becoming much more commonplace and of course necessary. And facilitating this will allow for, the kind of diversity of thinking, perspective, and approaches that we need in STEM-related endeavors. So we're in a so-called post-truth era. Phenomenon of fake news and misinformation and manipulation in social media, as some of the other speakers alluded to. So we need now more than ever to ensure that our citizens are equipped to evaluate the social, the ethical, political, the sustainability issues that are around STEM. And as was said, it's, whether it's climate science or medical advances like gene editing, or vaccines, energy solutions, food for a changing planet, it's all moving very quickly. And the resulting degree of specialization is inevitable, of course, but it does give rise to an urgent need for those of us in science education and related disciplines that we need to keep updating our current subject knowledge, as well as our skills in pedagogy. So argumentation, communication skills, and so on. For many citizens, their science teacher, their STEM teacher has and should be, I think, the primary person that they look to for reliable, trustworthy information in these areas. Students rely on their teachers to help them develop, well-informed perspectives on the kinds of areas, on these kind of areas, on other important issues relating to STEM. So there's undoubtedly a challenge for us science teachers, STEM teachers, and we'll need various kinds of support, I think, from many different stakeholders, including industry partners, so that we can be that trusted guide that our students need, and indeed that the wider school community, I think, needs. So in many ways, experienced teachers are very well placed to do this. We're skilled professionals who understand engagement, communication, as well as the science, but increasingly they need substantial ongoing support from stakeholders in terms of provision of time and space, but also by way of funding, training, resources, and so on. So there are challenges for teachers then to continually sort of develop their practice as professionals to keep up to date with advances in science, technology, medicine, energy, big data, IT, biotech, you name it. These challenges are enormous, and the resources available for teachers are often simply just not sufficient. Government departments can be slow to move with the times, I guess, in this regard. Curriculum reform is occurring around the world to reflect these challenges, and while it's essential, that can also be slow to implement. It is really encouraging to hear Samati's outline of the plans of the EU Commission in teacher training and initiatives to improve STEM uptake, especially amongst girls. I'm just in that regard. I had the experience of writing a textbook for the new science syllabus that was introduced into Ireland recently, and one of the things we decided to do was to highlight STEM careers, and the examples that we used almost invariably were women in STEM, Irish women that are involved in a variety of different STEM careers in Ireland. So industry partners can play a big role, I think, in supporting teachers, in maybe lobbying for teachers on teachers' behalf, in providing direct supports, or in supports directly for teachers, or maybe in partnership with state bodies. Companies can offer teachers the opportunity to engage in a partnership in which they and their students can gain an insight into the kinds of careers that science graduates have in industry. There's a big diversity of career paths that are available to science students, and I think that's something that teachers maybe can be somewhat unaware of. It's just such an ever-changing STEM career landscape. And I think work experience for students and their teachers may offer a way of increasing appreciation and awareness of what companies, what industry partners do. I had the opportunity of working a number of years ago in a state-funded initiative by Science Foundation Ireland, whereby I was able to work as a science teacher in a university research laboratory over a period of a few years, a month at a time. And that kind of program is, I think, something that industry partners would be, if they were willing to put something like that into place, would be of great benefit to teachers in their practice.
Thank you very much, Declan, and thank you to all our panelists for this first part of our discussion. And in the second part, I'm going to ask each of you a simple follow-up question just to, reflect on something that you have mentioned, or on the other hand, maybe something you haven't covered yet. So I will move back to Lisha, who was also the first speaker in the first part. And my question is really focused on the programs that you were talking about. I mean, namely one program, really, the YSTEM 2D program, because Johnson & Johnson was the company that initiated collaboration with CSR Europe and other companies. So since you already had such, successful and very popular program on your own, why was it important for you, for Johnson & Johnson, to join forces with other companies?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Andrea. And I think, I think you can do so much on your own. And I think for many of the big challenges that we face in the world, we need big solutions, and we can't fix things on our own. And collaboration amongst companies, combining resources and talents, is really one of the ways of I suppose, expanding your impact. And I think what we're seeing within J&J is that we do have this gap in our pipeline for the future for female scientists, and we really want to work with others. I think there's nothing lost by broadening that initiative to include other companies. I think it can only be a win-win for all of us. And I think that many companies are committed to helping students in their own ways. So we can, by combining forces, we can really learn from each other. So, I mean, we're also working, actually, as well as with other companies, we're working with the OECD on this topic. And I think it was really interesting to hear Samati earlier talking about what the European Commission is doing. And I think that's really exciting as well, because we need to work with other companies, we need to work with the departments of education. And we also, I mean, we've heard a lot about education here, and I think we need to just broaden what we're doing so that the combination is bigger and is much more impactful than any one of us trying to fix this problem on our own, because it's too big for that. Back to you, Andrea.
Yes, I was just unmuting myself. It takes a second. Thank you very much, Lisha. And we're, of course, very happy to have companies such as you and IBM and Amgen, and hopefully many more in the future, to collaborate with us on such an important topic. Dominic, hearing that, it is a great initiative, not only if your company does program on their own, but if you also join forces. However, we can imagine that for a lot of teachers, parents, or students, companies and their programs and maybe online learning resources might not be the first thing that comes to mind when they think of, looking for STEM opportunities. Is there anything that the companies can do to maybe improve this, and also possibly with a collaboration again with some other stakeholders?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the main thing is that companies need to work with the organizations that serve the school system, and that could be government agency, it could be non-governmental organizations, but also to build an ecosystem with business partners, because there's no one sort of, no one company, not one school, etc., that would be able to do it on their own. So that's really important. And I'll give you an example of this. In Sweden, we have a project called 290 Cybersecurity, and that's got a target to provide cybersecurity lessons to school students in all 290 Swedish municipalities using employee volunteers. And IBM doesn't have a presence in all of those 290 municipalities. So it's partnered with a science education non-profit that does have reach into the schools, but also other businesses across Sweden to make this happen. And it started out as a face-to-face interaction before the pandemic, but now it's gone online, with the lessons being sort of pre-recorded and by volunteers and made available on IBM's Open PTech digital learning platform. So my very short answer is work with the organizations that work directly with schools, but also you build this ecosystem with your business partners.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dominic. Ashley, over to you. You know that I personally, in a very biased way, I really like your story, because you, as a high school student, benefited directly from a participation in an Amgen program. And now you, as I call it, you made the full circle and you ended up working for Amgen again, you ended up working for Amgen, and now you actually give back, to what you benefited from, you try to give back. So can you say in your own words how your participation in the particular Amgen program helped you, shape your career and your current position? A little bit about your story.
Absolutely. And I so appreciate Alice sharing her story as well, and speaking to the importance of early intervention, as that's something I really agree with too. And this theme that if you don't see it, like if you don't have those role models, how can you even imagine yourself in that space? So role models and opportunities to engage in quality STEM experiences are so important. So I have this really clear memory of one day in my high school class, my high school biology class, where my teacher rolled into the classroom a big old cooler of reagents. And it was from the Amgen Biotech Experience, which is the high school program that the Amgen Foundation funds. And so these reagents were for 3 weeks of biotech curricula where you end up transforming E. coli to produce red fluorescent protein. So you're using micropipettes, you're using gel electrophoresis chambers, all of this equipment, which we had never seen before. And many students still don't have the opportunity to engage with in their lower science classes. So that really did make an impact on me. I decided I was definitely really interested in DNA. I studied molecular genetics in college. I looked for research opportunities and got into a research lab and I still try to read everything I can get my hands on about molecular genetics and DNA, just because I think it's so crazy that life exists and that we're here and we're these molecules and chemical interactions, right? But all of that started in school. And so the impact of your education and the things you're exposed to are really so important. I did go on to teach biology for 3 years after graduating with my Master's of Education. It was so amazing, so much love, but also so many tears, because the burden on teachers when they try to tackle big things like this themselves, it's a lot. And trying to achieve that work-life balance for me personally, I didn't feel like I could do it. So I'm very proud to be involved in this science education space where I feel like I have the support to advocate for quality science education experiences and really support programs that make a difference in people's lives. Thank you, Andrea. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Declan, now I have a question for you. You've already mentioned it, and we can also really feel it in your speech that you also heavily benefited from participation in an Amgen program, and it has had an impact on you. So how do you think it can impact also other teachers? How can it support them? How it might help them, get more up to date also with the technological innovations and maybe innovative ways of teaching?
Yeah, so thank you, Andrea. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to be involved with Amgen sponsored programs like Ashley talked about, the Amgen Biotech Experience, and also Amgen Teach, which I'll talk about in a second, and also organizations like Science on Stage. But just to talk about the Amgen side of things, so ABE, the Amgen Biotech Experience in Ireland, as Ashley said, they have provided hundreds of Irish secondary school teachers with training, but also importantly with the kind of equipment and consumables that allow them to do the kind of really exciting cutting edge stuff that can happen as a result in the classroom. And this is replicated around the globe. ABE also works with teachers and students to develop and provide teaching resources as well as structured online activities in things like bioinformatics and sequence analysis and so on. And actually these kind of dry labs have been particularly useful for me and my students during these periods of remote and blended learning. Just talking about Amgen Teach, so this time with my teacher trainer hat on, I was able to develop a professional development program for biology teachers under Amgen Teach funding. And that was extraordinarily popular. It was very well received. It allowed teachers on the one hand to update their subject content, their subject knowledge, but also to consolidate their lab skills. To develop their teaching practice in inquiry-based methods and structured problem solving. And I think that latter part of in-service professional development for teachers and also for initial teacher training is really crucial to help teachers use the kinds of pedagogical methods that research has shown to be effective and that teachers do need support with. So yeah, teaching approaches that engender a deep understanding of the principles and the processes of STEM subjects, but also that help students to develop the kind of 21st century skills that we've been talking about, critical thinking and problem solving, communication skills, and so on. All of which they'll need as they move from school, perhaps to university, but into whatever career they go into. And just in reference to what one of the speakers mentioned with STEAM, one of the things we did at Amgen Teach was to work collaboratively with teachers, non-science teachers from an organization called Philosophy Ireland. They're a group who promote teaching and learning of philosophy in schools. And I worked closely. I was lucky enough to have a colleague in my school who teaches philosophy, and we worked to develop a workshop component for STEM teachers to help them to deal with in the classroom with societal and ethical issues that arise from modern developments in biotech and genetics and medicine and so on. So yeah, Amgen has been a strong advocate of inquiry-based education, and programs like Amgen Teach and ABE offer teachers a means of forming professional learning communities, which I think are really, very important for sustainably for sustainable ongoing professional development for teachers. And now, these have increasingly been able to move on to online spaces, which of course we're all much more familiar with, and that can provide us with a way of ensuring that these kind of professional learning communities continue to flourish. European Science on Stage, I mentioned, that's an initiative that is extraordinarily successful. I've been involved with it. It establishes and encourages those kinds of teacher collaboration and networks, not just within individual countries, but between teachers and students in the EU states. And I can talk about that in a minute. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Declan. And the last question goes to Alice. We heard from you, we heard from Ritusha, and we spoke a lot about, young girls and young women that can be motivated, and there's still so much potential to encourage them and motivate them to follow either studies or careers or both in STEM. Alice, do you think that more cross-company or cross-sectoral collaboration can be beneficial and maybe can have an impact on motivating young girls?
Absolutely, Andrea. I think definitely, as I spoke about before, the impact that the University of Limerick, Johnson & Johnson YSTEM 2D program collaboration has definitely had a huge impact on all of us as students. And I think especially for young female students in secondary school, a lot of them want to be in a career that's helping people. And I think by getting the message out there about what STEM 2D is really about, overcomes stereotyping and encourages more young students into STEM. And what I mean by careers that are helping people is that it's a statistic that I came across a few years ago from an Irish I Wish event, which is an event that encourages young secondary school girls into STEM, and it's an event that's also sponsored by Johnson & Johnson. And the statistic was that 82% of young secondary female students wanted to be in a career in which they could help people, and they didn't see how STEM careers could facilitate that. And I suppose the statistic stuck with me because I could relate to that, in that I didn't think that STEM could facilitate that at the time, but now I realise that's exactly what STEM is all about, and that's what programs and collaborations like these bring, more clarity about what STEM 2D is really all about, and in that we are trying to help people every day in those careers and influence people's lives in a beneficial way. So I'll keep it short like that, and I'll pass it back to you, Andrea.
I love how most of you are doing the passing it over you. I feel like on a newscast on TV. It's very exciting. I thank you very much, Alice, and I really want to thank all of our speakers in our panel discussion today. I wish we had more time, because I believe there would be so much more to discuss and to elaborate on. But anyway, we can see that you are already doing so much, on your own. But together, as it was mentioned several times, we can achieve even more. I hope we also inspired our audience to check some of those programs, also to check the program by CSR Europe, the STEM at Home platform. And since we do not have time for Q&A, I invite the participants to still maybe ask the question in chat, because the chat is still accessible even after the session. So also the speakers can reply back if they feel doing so, or you can also post a discussion post in the lobby area. So thank you so much once again. I also want to thank Rituja and Sumati, and I'm handing the word over to Michelle to close off the session.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much to all the speakers. Indeed, I think it has been very interesting and very inspiring to listen to all the speakers. Actually, I think there is much more to say, and everybody would like to say much more. We could go for 1 more hour, I guess. And also, unfortunately, we cannot answer the questions now. But like Andrea said, please feel free to put them in the chat and come to the lobby of the SDG Summit website. Indeed, it has been very interesting, and definitely the good thing is that we can hear from all the different people, from companies, students, teachers, and also from the institutions with Sumati, that the problem is well actually on the spot and really identified in terms of STEM skills availability, but also in terms of female studies and careers in STEM. So the need to encourage young women to come into the studies for STEM and also into the careers. There has been a lot of very good initiative already mentioned by all the speakers. That's good to see. I think one of the key elements, which is also spotted in the new program from the Commission, is really the collaboration between all the different stakeholders, not only between companies, but also with universities, with NGOs, and with the institutions. Like Andrea said, actually, we are pleased to have this collaborative platform with different companies, and we hope that we can extend it with other companies as well. But definitely, that would help indeed to see that everybody is working the same direction for this, in order to try to get more skills in the STEM area and in the careers actually to support the companies and the business in the future. So I'd like to thank everybody. It was a really good session. We are already over the time, and this is actually the last session of the SDG Summit of this week. So thank you very much for the attention, and have a good afternoon and good weekend. Thank you.